Hey, it's me, Jasmine. Welcome back to Just Jasmine, Dreams of Jasmine. Today, I'd like to talk about something that seems like a lot of people are doing these days, and that is quitting my job and moving back in with my parents. So this is something on CNBC. It says that people are quitting their jobs in record numbers. Almost 4 million Americans quit their jobs in April, according to the Labor Department, the most on record since the government started recording labor turnover in 2000. I think I've even read some things that have said that like Black women are quitting their jobs in like record numbers as well. I've seen that just people in general, like 90% of the workforce is contemplating quitting their jobs. And I think the reason for that is a lot of us never wanted to really work in the places that we were in to begin with. And here's the thing about money, like, it's not eternal, right? Money, despite what Drake says, you can't take your money to the grave. I think that there's like this awakening to capitalism, awakening to white supremacy, awakening to a lot of things that intertwine that have kind of established the foundation of how we think, particularly here in the US, and how we approach work and play and life. I think what the pandemic taught us is that life is more than just money. We learned that life is precious and life is valuable. And I think a lot of us were thinking about quitting our jobs or actually went through with doing so because we learned on a new level how precious and how valuable our lives are. And our lives are comprised of a limited amount of time, at least here on this planet. And I think that's definitely some of the reasons for me. There's been something so beautiful about not working. And it's been awkward at times because I feel like everyone, even as I was gearing up to leave, or even as I've, spent the past 90 days not working, people are just like, well, when are you going to work again? Well, what are you doing for work? And I'm just like,
my vibe right now is just living life,
And it took me even a while to get there. I feel like my first month was just, it went by so fast. My first month out of work went by like that. I didn't even, it took me that long just to process my paperwork and do my exit interview and all of those things and kind of like come down from having to get up every day and like do work. And then I almost went into like a weird kind of foggy depression where I didn't really know what to do with myself. At the end of the day, I set myself up in order to be able to do this. I saved money, I moved back in with my parents, and I knew that when I moved back in with my parents that there was going to be a strong possibility that I was going to quit my job. I think that we have this perhaps false idea. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the other videos on YouTube that were circulating for a while that were, most of them were titled like, I do not dream of labor. And while I haven't seen a lot of those videos, the title deeply resonates with me. When I think about my life, I've never thought about it in terms of like my career. And that's just me. I don't think that there's anything wrong with thinking of your life in that way. I don't think that there's anything wrong with being really motivated and really moved by money or work or whatever. I think ever since, perhaps it's the influence of the Titanic. Perhaps it's the influence of that good old VHS Titanic that I was watching when I was 9 years old. Something that was always like so poignant for me. Something that always like resonated with me. In that movie is at the end when my good sis throws the heart of the ocean into the ocean and she passes away in her bed on the ship. And they do this kind of like montage, or not a montage, but they do this kind of like panoramic view of all of these pictures of all these things that she did in her life. And she did all of the things that she and Jack, who had no money, discussed while they had their short time together before the boat sank. Strange analogy, I know, but that always resonated with me, like those are the types of things that I dream of. Those are the types of things I want to do. I want a horseback ride. And that's kind of like even why I started Dreams of Jasmine. It wasn't because I wanted to have this like career and like the blogging media space, you know? It was because I always wanted to do the things that I dreamt of doing. And I've never thought so much about how I was going to do that. I just knew that I would. You know, it's not for everybody and everybody doesn't need to do it. But if you think about just the data that's come out about people who are looking to quit their jobs, who want to quit their jobs, there's a reason, you know, that may not be the space for you. That may not be the space for you anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with moving around. I could go into even deeper just about like how antiquated the system of even applying for jobs is these days, and how exhausting that is, and how so many of us, as we're seeing, especially in the services industry, restaurants and other places like that, people are overworked and underpaid. And the whole workforce, at least in the United States, I feel needs a major overhaul. And I think that people leaving, if anything, has already started that transformation in which we will value people, we will value their time, and we will value their lives. Greed has really gotten us, has really brought us to like a unique place in this country, and a place that I don't think that we're truly proud of as a collective. And I don't know if I'm gonna finish that thought. That's kind of all I have to say about that. Okay, so part 2 of this chat is me talking about how I moved back in with my parents. And first came me moving in with my parents, then came me leaving my job. I'm gonna be honest, guys, like I manifested this. In the kind of like spiritual community, a lot of people talk about like a lot of times your manifestation isn't gonna come in the way that you think it is. It's still gonna be everything that you want, but it'll just come to you in a way that you didn't think it was necessarily going to materialize. And I would definitely say that is how it went down and how I ended up moving back in with my parents. So if I can backtrack to 2018, what I knew was that I did not want to live where I was living anymore. I wanted to move to a space that I had more physical space, access to more services, you know, grocery stores, foods, coffee shop. I kind of lived in a food desert at the time. I wanted to live in a place that had a lot of like light and more nature, and that came in the form of me kind of like applying for different apartments and saving up my money, and even trying to get into like affordable housing, which isn't even that affordable in DC, and just kind of like making those changes so that you know you can visualize and pray for and write down things all you want to, but if you don't do anything differently, those things aren't going to materialize. I was actively trying to move. I was actively trying to get out of the space that I was in. But here's what they tell you in manifestation, okay? They tell you to keep it general, to understand the root, to understand your why. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I knew I wanted to get out of where I was, but why? Ultimately, for me, it was I wanted more space, more security, more room to be creative. So fast forward to, you know, mid to late 2019, nothing was really working out for me in the arena of moving. At the end of 2019, basically, a company reached out to my dad, asked him if he wanted to work at such company, and asked him if he'd be willing to move to DC. So when I found this out, it's crazy how I had always said if my parents moved to DC, of course I'd move back in with them. Even my parents moved to Atlanta, of course I would move in with them. But it was interesting the resistance that came up when this was actually potentially going to happen. Then I was like, wait a minute, move in with my parents, like I don't know about all that. And they were like, why? Like, why wouldn't you move in with us? And I was just like, I'm grown. Like, why am I gonna live with my parents at 29 or 30 or however old I was? 31. I was 30. I don't know why I forgot how old I was. You know, it was like, why wouldn't you move in with us? Like, that doesn't make any sense, yada yada. And I was like, I don't know, guys. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm grown now. Like, I'm too grown to be living with y'all. So, yeah, fast forward. Hi, future sleepy editing Jasmine here. Essentially what I'm trying to say right here, because the story is just too long to edit and too long to try to piece together, but at the end of 2019, I was getting really discouraged in my moving journey, and that coincided with my dad getting a job in DC, which meant that my family was going to be moving here. That didn't end up happening right away because obviously the world was turned upside down for various reasons. And I ended up living with them in North Carolina, where they were at the time, for about 6 months, which helped me get accustomed to living with them, which resulted in me more permanently moving in with them in DC. And so we all ended up in DC together about 8 months after the panorama started. Okay, back to the original video. So maybe about a year ago, I was sitting quietly in this new space and I was feeling really down on myself. I was just like, yo, like I'm living with my parents again, like I'm 31 years old. Like, what have I accomplished? Like, what have I done with my life? Like, why am I here? And just in that moment, like quietly, I just heard like, this is exactly what you asked for, everything, the root of everything that I wanted and the reasons that I wanted to move. Like, I now have all of those things. It's like everything that I was manifesting essentially materialized through the opportunity to move back in with my parents. It's like my parents weren't even living here a year ago. I never moved, like that's what the crazy thing is. Like a whole family was uprooted and brought to where I am so that I could live better. And I know that that's not the fullness of it. Obviously, we're all benefiting from this new life that we're living, but it was just crazy because I was like, wait, no, I did. At the root, this has provided me with everything that I wanted. In the process of moving back in, talking to my friends, talking to other people about moving back in, I feel like we really love this kind of like every man for himself, every woman for herself, every person for themselves. And I was having a conversation with the guy who cut my hair a few months back, and we were just talking about like how kind of like different we are here to the rest of the world. A lot of other places around the world, if not pretty much every other place around the world, they live with their families. It's not unique to have an intergenerational household, a household with multiple families. And we even were discussing how it's tribal even, and how we've kind of lost sight of that here in the US, and how it's the opposite in that, like, not only is that not necessarily the norm, but it's almost frowned upon. It's like people feel less than for living with their own family. And, a lot of us would rather struggle financially, mentally, spiritually, physically than live with our parents. Now, I absolutely understand that there is, people have great trauma within their families, and sometimes like living with your family may not be the healthiest space for you. But I will say for me, moving in with my family has been very triggering. This is the first time I've lived with my family and my entire family for this long, since I left in high school. And I have had to process through, that's just something in my closet falling. But I've had to process through a lot of triggers. And what I've learned from that is like a trigger doesn't have to remain a trigger. And for me, it's helped me to look at triggers as an opportunity to heal a wound. It's really what a trigger is somebody like poking an open wound, somebody poking a wound that didn't heal properly. I've had days where I was so triggered that I was like, I have to move out. Like, I can't stay here. And I don't have, an abusive, situation in my household, but we all have toxic tendencies. We all have, even within this global situation that we're dealing with, we're all dealing with it differently. We all are processing it differently. And I can truly say only recently, it's been a year that it's been over a year since I've been with my family, but it's only fairly recently that I've come to a place where I feel that I've really healed some spaces. A lot of stuff came up for me that I didn't even realize was there. I've had memories that I completely forgot about come up in conversations. I have had things told to me that I really needed to hear, you know, that certain things that happened in the past, and I've been able to reconcile with some things within myself and with my family, and the things that perhaps, you know, we didn't have some big talk about, I've been able to make a peace with them that I wouldn't have been able to make before, because I never would have come back and these things wouldn't have come up in the first place. And so that's definitely one benefit, I believe. I was able to process through the triggers. I've been able to get over the triggers. I've been able to, most importantly, heal the triggers, and that alone has been worth moving back in with my family. Another thing is like just being with my family in general, and the joys of being with my family. You know, my parents are getting older. My grandmother's here with us as well, and we have 5 generations in the house: Gen Z, millennial. Shout out to the millennials living with their parents. Gen X. And I don't really know what generation my grandmother is. I'm not going to put her on blast like that, but older. And, you know, my siblings are in Gen Z. I'm a millennial, and we're very far apart in age. We're 8, 11, and 13 years apart. And so I didn't really grow up with them, and they're just now hitting ages where we can have like certain types of conversations, where we can discuss certain things, where we can go certain places together, where we can have a drink together. You know, they're just now getting to that age group. And it's like something I've just been waiting for my whole life, honestly. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry today. But I've just been able to like hang out with them and learn about them and see how they interact with each other and hear stories from their side of the, you know, of the, what am I trying to say? Hear stories from their childhood and share stories from mine. And it feels more like 4 as opposed to like 3 and 1, which is how it kind of used to feel. And that's been my favorite thing. I feel so blessed. And the last thing, I guess, would definitely be just like the how I've been able to release so much judgment and step into so much unconditional love, for not just myself, but for my family and the collective, because I live with 4 different generations in the house. We all see things so differently. And so the opportunity to have certain conversations and to just have things come up, and hear everyone else's perspective on them has been really dope, and has really helped me to understand the collective greater. You know, coming to a place where I better understand my parents has helped me to better understand people who are like them. Same with my grandmother, same with my siblings. Gen Z is so cool. Like they're so like radical. I love it. It's been very like freeing to be in a house with so many different age groups. You know, I look at like my siblings and I remember where I came from. I look at my parents and I see that they don't have it as figured out as people think you should. And I look at my grandmother and I feel like she has so much life to live still. So therefore, how much life do I still have left to live? You know, I feel like sometimes like people in my age group are like trying to age ourselves and act like we're so old, and we're just not. We are babies. We're so young and we have so much life ahead of us. We don't always see it that way, but that's the truth. And that's something that's really like kind of sunk in for me while being home. I'm very grateful for it. I understand it's a privilege just as much as it's a privilege. It's an opportunity that I took advantage of. Let me know if any of you all moved in with your parents at any given point in time during the panorama, Pamela Anderson, Panny, whatever we're calling it these days. Let me know if any of you guys are contemplating moving back in with your parents. Let me know if any of you all quit your jobs. If so, let me know what you're doing. If you have a business or if you're just vibing, you know, definitely share. And let me know what you've learned from doing those things, if you have done them. And if any of this resonated with you, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, come join the family. I'm trying to create a little family here, guys. Like, let's create a little... So my card died, but like I was saying, let's create a vibe, let's create a safe space, and I will see you guys in the next video.